And then, as a point made here by GDoc, brackets doc, for clarification, BR's mini rant was him having a dig at the fans for the criticism of him and the team's performance in the derby on Thursday. And rightly so, as they were terrible, though some of it was over the top. So I want to talk about Rodgers' comments. Now, this is dividing opinion. I put up a comment earlier from Monty saying, good on him, putting our fans in their place, our moaning fans. But yeah, I mean, opinion is very divided. Here's a bunch of people on Twitter saying they all agree with what he said, agree with everything, 100% right. 100% the only disappointing thing is he has to come out and say it. The PlayStation generation, this guy's complained about. Totally agree with him. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody else saying, well, if his football hadn't got so slow and pedantic compared to before the Leipzig game, then the fans wouldn't be on his case.
Bingo.
The slow stuff won't work against better teams, and it's about time he found a solution. These people are disagreeing, but kind of respectfully and tactically, you know. He's 100% correct, but he's only right to call it out if it happens every week. But on the back of arguably one of our worst performances since his return, then it's normal for fans to be anxious. Similar point below. And yeah, well, kind of here as well. Fans know the difference between recycling the ball and choosing not to pass forward when there's an option and players are making runs, right? Which is kind of, you know, well, anyway, we'll go through these. Here's the last one. He can stick that chat up his piss hole. The football's been dire for weeks now, and he's just off the back of having a managerial disaster 3 days ago and learning nothing from the previous encounter. He can look closer to home before criticising others.
Let's go, Lee.
Right, so
Lee's the man.
There's truth in all of that. Jerry, where do you come down on this?
I agree with him from a manager's point of view, protecting his players, standing up for his players, but I also understand the frustration. And when talking about the last Rangers game and the cup final, I mean, well, Scales was probably the biggest culprit or liability in the Ibrox game. I'd say Taylor was in the Scottish Cup final for sure. So I sympathise with him. I understand. I can understand being a bit pissed off as well. I think the one thing that 100% I agree with is Brendan Rodgers saying, you put yourself in his position, in the Greg Taylor position, and if Brendan Rodgers put himself in that position, if the fans were singing for another manager when he was on the sidelines, then he wouldn't be best happy. So I think it's fair enough.
Yeah, me, as you know, guys, right, I'm on the other side of that fence. I went in there and I seen all these emotionally woke people going, yeah, you go, Brendan. You tell those fans, tell them not to boo Greg Taylor. Well, I've been looking for a new left back for 3 years. I've been biting my lip on it over and over again. Over and over again, we've mentioned Greg Taylor. So I feel like, what loyalty is Greg Taylor showing us? He's not signed a new deal. He's not saying he's staying. Just because you want to charm him, Brendan, doesn't mean we've all to roll over backwards and put our legs in the air. I'm not going to have someone who, well, I supported Celtic before Brendan Rodgers was here. I supported after he left the first time. I continued to support, and I'll continue to support long after Brendan Rodgers. I'm not going to have someone tell me how to support the club I love, who I should criticise, who I should not criticise, what I know about football. And just because I never played the game professionally doesn't mean I'm tactically inept and I don't recognise when a player's avoiding passing forward and passing back and the difference between recycling the play to open up a different attacking opportunity. I think it reeks of deflection. Brendan knows he's coming in for criticism after that performance at Ibrox. Completely no changes. He failed to change the game after the cup final. He failed to change the tactics. He failed to change it during the game. He failed to adjust while it was going wrong. And then after this game, he's just took his first opportunity to go on his soapbox and think he can declare things at fans. Me, personally, I don't think it's disrespectful for Celtic fans to be singing the name of a previous player who's firmly linked with the club and firmly linked with coming back. That's fair enough. You want to sing that guy's praises? Fair enough. I don't think singing Madonna's name makes Rihanna angry because the two of them are pop stars. I don't really care. I don't care how Greg Taylor feels about it. If he signs a new contract, he's got to be a Celtic player long term, then I will care about it. Right now, I don't care. Brendan should shut up, and that's my opinion on it.
Rodgers, I think he doesn't take criticism well. He got tons of it because of Rangers. His ego is not inconsiderable. And I do feel there was an element of him taking things personally, and he's using this as an opportunity to sort of lash out, and that doesn't smell right to me.
My view on this is that I'm kind of with Kaiser on this. The worst thing for me about this is Brendan Rodgers has took it on himself to criticise the fans who were at the game against St Mirren. Now, you're talking about people here who've dragged themselves out the house in horrific weather conditions, travelled to Celtic Park, probably some of them taking 5-6 hours to get there, out after the game onto coaches and trains, another 5-6 hours to get home, maybe not home till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And under no circumstances should Brendan Rodgers be criticising these people. Now, he's talking about booing, a back pass getting booed. Now, back passes, that never happened, right? No back pass was booed. When you get a negative piece of play in a stadium, you get some collective groans, right? And that's born out of the fact that, we've just had a heavy defeat off a bit of our biggest rivals. We've not been playing well recently, and there is a bit of concern throughout the fan base about whether this team is stalled, whether we've been worked out, and whether we've got the answers moving forward. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure that we do, right? But under no circumstances has Rodgers got the authority or the standing in the Celtic support to be criticising people who've come to a stadium in those sort of weather conditions. I think it was a horrific thing to say, and I think he owes the fan base an apology for that. Now, on the Kieran Tierney chanting, I mean, for God's sake, if we sign Kieran Tierney, and it looks like we will, this will be one of the biggest signings in the club's history. We're signing a guy at the peak of his career in the English Premier League with another 3 or possibly 4 English Premier League teams chasing him. Now, if it was anyone else without a history with Celtic, we'd be absolutely delighted with this signing. And what is the problem with singing his name and a bit of excitement about an impending signing? Is that where we are now? Are the fun police now telling us that we can't sing a player's name in case we offend the incumbent left back who hasn't signed a new contract, as Kaiser says, hasn't committed to the club and hasn't indicated he's going to stay with the club? So, according to reports in the media, he's talking to Dino Zagreb, he's talking to clubs in the Championship in England, potentially MLS as well. If Brendan Rodgers has got that much respect for Greg Taylor, then offer him a better contract. Offer him a deal that he's going to sign if you really want him to stay. But Brendan Rodgers and every manager who's managed Greg Taylor has tried to replace him. Every single one has attempted to replace him with a new left back, and Rodgers is currently doing it by trying to sign Kieran Tierney. We're going to invest millions and millions and millions of pounds to bring Kieran Tierney back to the club because he knows that Greg Taylor's not good enough to take us forward to the place we want to be. Now, he is a great servant to the club and he has done some great things. He's contributed well. And I think, he deserves respect. And I think he gets a lot of respect for the Celtic support. But in very, very specific games, especially in Champions League games, he gets found out. He cost us a goal in the cup final with a slack pass, which let Rangers run through and goal and score at a vital time of the game. And he does get caught at various times in the game. Now, I'm happy if Greg Taylor stays around and plays a squad player role at the club with Kieran Tierney as our left back. I'd be delighted. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with me or the Green Brigade or Kaiser or Jerry or anyone else in the Celtic support being excited about Kieran Tierney coming back. Absolutely nothing wrong at all.
Yeah, ill thought out comments. I think you're not allowed to be excited. You're not allowed to express excitement or disappointment in Celtic Park. I mean, what? I hate being told how to behave at a football game, It's like the market decides if your product is any good. The fans are allowed to express emotions. That's what it's all about. So for him to say, on one hand, you're not allowed to be excited about Tierney, and on the other, you're not allowed to express disappointment at failing to go forward at a time when we're desperate for the team to show some forward momentum generally. I just think it was stupid and unnecessary, and it's caused a lot of annoyance. And he ought to have not bothered.
I think he should have been counting his blessings, Gav, because large sections and large swathes of the Celtic community basically took the game at Ibrox and went, okay, that's going to happen. Water off a duck's back. Let's press it, reset, and go again. He never received the amount of flack he should have been receiving for it. And I do think he's got a wee bit inside his own head there before that interview.
It was all in the delivery from Rodgers, because there's a way he could have said all this stuff without being as aggressive about it, without being as in your face. And you're right, I got a message from my son today saying it gave him vibes of getting a row for your teacher because you've been taking a piss out a substitute teacher. It just the way he delivered it, and he was just saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this. That can't happen. He's talking in very deliberate terms. He's not leaving any room for manoeuvre here. He's saying, no, that is disrespectful. Not that could be seen as disrespectful. He could have said that, or that maybe sometimes the supporters should take a second and think, but it was all just, it was spoken in very direct terms, and I thought it was a really, really poor thing for him to say.
Let's move it on anyway with this final bit. Greg Taylor stopped at every fan that asked today on the way out the door and didn't storm out of anywhere. Seemed happy enough, apparently. Joe Boy on Twitter, relieved to see that Brendan's not up on the pulpit this morning telling me how to behave.
Spot on.